Hello, listeners. Welcome back from our break. As the wind rushes through the trees and we burrow deep into our homes like muskrats into their dens, let me tell you a story. A tale of madness and grief and an unbearable anger that shakes the bones of skeletons housed deep in their graves. A tale of unnatural invention when innovation takes a step too far. A tragedy. A deep, terrible truth. We open the pages of this tale at the side of scientist Wilson Wilson. Well, to be specific, Wilson Carlos Wilson the 15th, last of a long line of people with names too uninspired and terrible to be uttered more than once in a single sentence. At the time of our dear redundantly titled scientist, the world was similar to our own. The trees bent with the unexplainable forces of nature, the sides of good and evil meaningless and arbitrary. The grip of madness was upon him, our scientist, the enthusiasm of producing what had never been produced before. The claws of discovery had dug themselves deep into his heart. If it hadn't been for this ambition of his, and the subsequent loss of reason over his own actions and their resulting consequences, he might still be alive today. The project was pitched in early January to a group of his closest peers. Let's just say that they didn't take it well. "That's absurd," they said. "Unnatural." Wrong. But our dear Wilson ignored it all, lost in the throes of creation and possibility. He pressed onwards without regard, hiding his treasured progress away in the chasm of his lab, the bubbling beakers and spinning dials mere parts of his unfolding discovery, and his unfolding doom. A creation was born in early April, born in a vial, the results of countless hours without pause and nights without sleep, the results of one's desire to revamp what science could do, what it could create. It was intelligent, scarily so. It was beautiful in a way. Although everything about it had been made in a jar, it practically purred with life and possibility. But instead of being nurtured, as all life should, it was observed and tested, without autonomy, without relief. And it soon grew to resent the scientist that had created it, grew to resent the shimmering vials that some would call progress, grew to resent the nature of itself and the nature of what it had been created for. Progress. That word was thought with contempt and bitterness, for all it knew was a vial and a lab, the company of one man, the life of captivity with the knowledge of what lay outside gathered in bits and bursts. For the scientist was careless of what he taught, and what his creation was able to overhear or discover, and he was ignorant of what atrocities he'd created despite all attempts to stop him, all of the warnings, all of the morality. His eyes were focused on progress, that metallic word that sparked hatred in the aquarium in the corner. Our dear scientist compiled his results in the span of 2 weeks, writing them down in a little red journal. As he wrote them, something settled. His gaze often found its way back to the corner, where it sat at the bottom of the tank, eyeing him with a piercing stare. He always looked away rather quickly, the stare making something gnaw at him deep in his gut. It was the day he stared back that something seemed to register. For the eyes that stared back at him were intelligent, yes, but angry, filled with a hate so strong they almost looked red. It was at that moment he knew that something lay in that tank, something unsalvageable, something pierced by the darkness in the world, something he had twisted until it turned dark and malicious, and he was the cause of it. This, of course, stewed uncomfortably in his mind for a matter of days. He took to drinking to try and forget, and then it caught up with him. It escaped, and that night, as he was drinking alone, trying to figure out what could be done before it was too late, it struck. And there ends the tale of Wilson Carlos Wilson the 15th, and his experiment 616. For those in the pursuit of progress, never quite seemed to get a happy ending.
Oh god, it's a gremlin! The writers are escaping! The creativity! We have unleashed the creativity!
Our editors is Mr. Skeleton, the Skelly Man, and me, Molly Wilson.
Oh no, a terrifying monster. Whatever shall we do? It's too big and terrible to defeat. It is not at all literally less than a foot tall. No, much terrifying, much scared.